right. Well, let me give a quick intro to myself. My name's Todd Leopold. I'm the county manager for Adams County. Been in this role about 2.5 years. A little bit about my background, and it's fairly unique, is I'm actually an Adams County native. I actually grew up in North Glen, into Thornton, went through the District 12 school district, and so coming full circle, I was down in New Mexico, worked down there for a while, came all the way back to Colorado, worked in Jefferson County for quite some time, and then been over in Adams County. So it's exciting time for me. It's kind of coming back to the community where I grew up at. And as Don attested to, the transformations have been pretty outstanding. So let me, I got to, let's see here. Well, I may have jumped through one, but let me tell you a little bit about what my presentation is really going to be talking about. One of the things that I want to talk about is really about our focus around our community. And as a futurist, and many of you in this room, you know, things do not happen by happenstance. There's many times a lot of things that go into play about growth and trends, and you use those figures and look at those statistics to make decisions about things in the future. And that's what we do in Adams County. We're really data driven. But what I thought it was interesting is to show you about this community and this county as a whole, because I think Donna alluded to it a little earlier. And this is, let me talk about this because there's a couple of slides and it'll show you what the differences are between what Adams County is doing, maybe what the another county, Westminster, as you know, is split between two counties, so Adams County and Jeffco. So I want to show you what that looks like a little bit. If you look at this slide, this red line really represents growth that's happened in Adams County from 2000 to 2010, kind of census data. The green line represents from zero to a negative migration out. And so what you're seeing, and you're seeing the age down at the bottom here. And so if you look at Adams County, which is very unique, it's something that Don touched on just a little earlier, is about the young aspect of this community. Unlike other places around the country, Adams County is actually a very young community. You see a large percentage of, with that 0 to basically 30 years of age, we have a huge number of people coming into the community. What that means is we have needs for schools. These are ones that are young families that are wanting to grow up here. Obviously, there's a downward trend. They usually are migrating around, but there's still some positive attributes there. We do have a age as you get out a little bit. We don't have as many people in the older ages coming in. So again, this is a younger community. This is a little different representation. I want to show it to you because this is different when we talk about counties throughout the Denver metropolitan area. And I'm using Jefferson County just because of the split between the city and split between the two counties. But what you see in Jefferson County is really that reduction or that decline in that younger population. It's an older county. You see still some significant migration going out even in the out years. So there isn't a lot of growth. There's not new growth. There's a lot of people aging in place is what they call it. And so when we talk about this and we look at communities and we look at what the needs are of that community, we need to see what the demographic and age population is. Jefferson County is probably going to need maybe not as many school growth areas because they really don't have that much land to expand, unlike Adams. But they may need more assisted living centers, more of that retirement community. Those are the needs that they're seeing in their community. A little bit about Denver, because I think this is an interesting slide as well. You see this kind of this decline. There aren't that many in that early age, but boy, everybody wants to come to Denver when they're in their 20s and 30s. It's kind of the catapulting area. And what you see, if you look at Denver, is That's where all the condos are, all that, just behind the Union Station, all the condominiums that are coming up. So these are young, either singles or newly married, are living there. But what they want to do, and they get to about that 30, 35 age demographic, they are leaving in numbers and leaving really to the suburbs. And the reason being is they want to have families. It's very expensive to live there. These small, cramped areas, they want to move out into the suburbs. They may have more housing and affordability. So those are areas that Denver is addressing, is how do we keep that balance? And I think that's one of the most critical things we talk about in Adams is having a balance, affordable housing, these areas that we identify affordable housing, and we have the needs of the community as a whole. This is a little bit, and I'm just going to break it down. This is kind of Colorado, and again, something Don kind of touched on. The state as a whole, fairly young community. We have a lot of growth going on. The millennials coming up, they're all coming into the state. They're heading in different areas, and Adams County is actually a beneficiary of that. The highest number of millennials in the state is actually coming into Adams County. So that's a really interesting fact and something that we're making sure that we're addressing and being proactive about. And our municipal partners are really critical to that as well. So this next slide's a little bit, and these are a couple slides, but it gives you kind of some context about what we're dealing with and what we're trying to address. What you see here is the yellow or orange represents just natural increases in your community. The lower, the blue bars represent net migration, so people coming in. They may not be people there, but this is from 1980 and it goes to 2014. What you're seeing here is we see an increase in net increase in number of people. So a younger community, younger families, growing kids. So that's what you're seeing in that increase in that natural increase area. And then obviously we're seeing also an increase in net migration. So people coming into Adams County. One of the fastest growing counties in the state, and in job growth in 2015, we were actually the largest and fastest growing in job growth in the entire country. That's pretty significant. We had been behind Weld County. The oil boom kind of drove that for them, but that kind of diminished about mid-year 2015, and Adams County kind of hopscotched there. So a lot of growth going on here. Again, I want to touch on just the differences that are happening in Westminster, not necessarily Westminster in general, but at Jefferson County. You're seeing a little different. You're seeing kind of a reduction over time in terms of natural increase, and that's, again, you don't have as many new families coming in, so you have older people aging out, their kids are going off to college, doing their own things, so you're seeing a reduction there. But they have had some increases over the last couple of years in terms of net migration in, but again, they don't have that opportunity to grow like we're seeing in Adams County on this side of the border. Colorado, though, as you can tell, again, kind of correlates to the growth that we're seeing. We're seeing increases. We have younger families, so you're seeing some increase. There's a little dip there in 12, 13, and 14, but overall, in natural increases, that's continuing to go up, and then obviously we're seeing that in people just wanting to come to the state. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, those are the numbers, those are the stats that we use to say what sort of service delivery do we want. But one of the areas that we do want to touch on is looking at our organization. Things have been significantly different in Adams County in really the last 2.5, 3 years. And I'm going to touch on about 2 or 3 of those items. The first one is there was a vote back in 2012. Citizens of Adams County voted to increase the number of elected Board of County Commissioners from 3 members to 5 members. That passed. That took place in 2013. We redistricted. So as growth was occurring, what I think the general sentiment was we want a little more better representation. And so we redistricted the community. And broke them out into the 5 different districts. In 14, you may have voted for a commissioner. They reside in 5 districts, but they run countywide. So that's kind of the general organizational structure. And they took office as of January 1 of 2015. What they did, though, in that same time period and when I came on, is they changed the structure up to something that's much more representative of probably a city structure. A strong county manager operation. They felt like they wanted to deal more with policy-driven pieces, as a city council may do, and let the management of the organization handle the day-to-day operational administrative tasks. And that's what really has transpired. So when we developed this organizational structure, obviously, the difference between a city and a county is really the elected offices. So we have 7 different elected offices. We have our treasurer, coroner, assessor, sheriff, clerk and recorder, district attorney, and a surveyor. All of them run elected and report directly to the citizenry. The Board of County Commissioners, we have 5 of them. And then myself in the middle, the county manager, really represents the administrative organization. And so when I looked at the organizational structure, many times, and if you know about Adams County and the size, the county is about a little under 2,000 employees. So fairly good sized organization as a whole. But when you get large organizations, sometimes you get a little more siloed. And I think that's what we were seeing when we were looking at this structure. So we ended up doing, we have a deputy for our internal service side, so over here, and then our external services on the other side. And so we broke it out into those 2 different areas, and we looked at community economic development, parks, open space, transportation, human services, kind of representing that citizen-facing front. And then we have our internal support functions, so fleet, facilities, IT, finance. Again, getting away from the siloed look and looking at how do we work together more operationally. One of the nice things, and it's a little hard to read here, but I think is really interesting, it kind of touches on Don's point about creativity in your community and benefiting that. We had a cultural affairs task force that was put in place in the middle of last year. One of the recommendations is culture, very important not only to those in the community, but what do we want to be? What's the perception of Adams County from a cultural art standpoint moving forward? So we developed an office of cultural affairs, and we have an individual that we hired recently, a coordinator. And that effort is really to drive public art, public infrastructure. How do we identify culture in this community? It's not only an arts program. This is really an economic development opportunity that we have in our unincorporated area of the county. We have a lot of parks. We have a lot of public space that we want to drive and create creativity in that area. And then we have a couple other areas in the middle, our budget office and some other support functions. We do have an airport in Adams County called Front Range Airport. It's out just about 6 miles southeast of DIA. One of the interesting pieces that we're doing right there is we're developing a spaceport. This project's about 3 years in the making. It's an application to the federal government. That application was going in actually the end of this year. The end of 2015. So we're in the process of having the FAA review that application. That allows us to have a spaceport. What does that mean? That really means we're really looking at opportunities to do point-to-point suborbital flight from Tokyo to Colorado, and then you could hop over to DIA and you could be anywhere in the US in 4 hours or less. This is a 10, 20, 30-year horizon, but it's really about how do we think differently about aviation, aerospace, and how does that interrelationship happen? In Colorado, aerospace is the second leading in the country in terms of jobs. So what we identified is we can have an airport and a spaceport, and we can have aviation and aerospace working really collaboratively together. And so we're really in the process of that. What that means is we'll have a license for a spaceport. There's 10 others in the country. There's 24, I believe, in the world right now, and Front Range will be kind of the catalyst for aerospace and aviation in Colorado in this general region. It'll be one of the first ones ever in the country that is close to a major urbanized area. Most of these, probably the greatest example is down at Spaceport America, which is down in Albuquerque, just outside of Albuquerque. Charles Branson and Virgin Galactic is probably something you've heard. He does a lot of testing out there. In our spaceport will be a lot of, there'll be certified planes, or they call them space vehicles. So that we won't be a test operator, and we won't be doing test flights out of Front Range. One, basically on the proximity of being close to DIA. But we are going to do that. We're going to focus on bringing in businesses that have a good synergy around aerospace and aviation. Let me just touch on the bottom, because I think it's one of the things that, and Don touched on this a bit, is the number of projects that's going on in Adams County. And so I wanted to touch on that, and then I'll talk about what I'm seeing from a community lens and really the future of not only local government, but what we're doing in this community. Some of the projects, and I think Don touched on it, we have some transit-oriented development, or TOD areas, are really the catalyst on the southeast portion of, and southwest portion of Adams County. It's really a transformational area, and it's tied in very nicely with Westminster. So that federal corridor, if you've been down there, we're doing some median enhancements. What you'd seen before is Westminster had some really good median development, and then Denver did. And in between was unincorporated Adams County. And so what we have done is try to beautify that area. So that's going to be a transformational area for us, as well as that Pecos area. There's going to be a TOD station off of Pecos, and there's going to be one at our Clear Creek station, which is about 60th and Federal. So that's going to be exciting. And then down in our Clear Creek area, a tremendous financial investment, not only from Westminster, but the county as well. And it's going to be really a destination point from an open space standpoint, as well. It's going to help with drainage, bring a number of our properties in unincorporated Adams County out of the floodplain. So there's some infrastructure development. So very exciting. I think the most important one that we're doing right now, and probably our largest project, is a consolidated human services facility. It's between Huron and Pecos off of 120th. Right behind that, Avaya, or well, now it's not Avaya, it's Digital Globe facility. So just behind there is about a 315,000 square foot human services building that's going to be constructed. It was a shelled out building that we're repurposing and going to be consolidating services. So our citizens and Westminster citizens can come and get those services in a one-stop shop. So as far as long-term community lens, I think there's 5 different areas that I want to touch on. One is the continued diversity of the population. Age is going to be a continual thing. So one of the things we have younger populations, we have ones with families, so we need to make sure we address those. And then we have some continually aging populations, so we want to make sure that we've addressed the needs of that population. Ethnicity, Don talked about 22%. Say Hispanic, Latino in Westminster. In the county as a whole, we're a little over 38%. In 10 years from now, we're supposed to be close to 50%, which means there is a tremendous need to make sure diversity and ethnicity and making sure we embrace that cultural differences is important. And then there's an industry diversity. Adams County, and historically, has been known more for landfills and industrial properties from the unincorporated side of the house. What we're seeing is really a change, more technology-driven businesses wanting to come in, not only for just the type and the millennials and the younger population and those individuals, but we're also looking at space to grow, and they can build their businesses, and there's land availability in these unincorporated areas. Resource infrastructure, these are constraints that we need to recognize. Water in Colorado is the most important thing. If you have it, it's gold. If you don't, it can cost you gold to get it. Drainage, as we see growth, we're continuing to make sure our infrastructure is supported. And roads. Roads in Adams County are some of the most important things, not only locally, not only the county roads, we're talking regional, I-25, I-36, 270, I-70 which is right on our south east border. All of these are tremendous infrastructure. Adams County has all the major transportation corridors running through it. That gives us a tremendous opportunity to do that, but we want to make sure that not only there's funding availability, but we're planning for the growth. Local government, financial resources, we're talking about collaboration. Regionalism is really an important thing for us. Technology is going to transform how we provide services. Buildings are going to be a necessity, but they may not be the largest buildings. People want to conduct business 24/7. We're doing that from a permitting standpoint right now, where you can go online, and if you're going to do a business in unincorporated Adams County, and you can get your permit online. You don't even have to come into the building. You schedule your appointments. The inspector, the building inspector, will come out and do that, and you can conduct those businesses without coming to our facility. So we want to talk about that. And then the skilled workforce. We have a workforce development operation, and we're really focused on the knowledge sector, making sure that we have that skill, but we're also seeing a deficiency in the trades, and we're seeing it at the schools. The schools are having a hard time. For the longest time, we've driven people to four-year institutions and said that's where you need to be. And what we're seeing is, especially in a growing community, we do not have the trades, the skilled labor needed to provide those services. So we're coming back and saying, where's that balance? So those are 5 areas that I want to touch on. I appreciate the time. Thank you, Tom, for all the support here.
Let's give Tom a big round of applause.